simply a bandwidth. Here we go.
There we
All
go.
right. Hey, folks, sorry about that. It's not our fault. I'm sure. Welcome, everyone, first of all. And let me just speak favor and peace amongst us. We're late because, well, as many of you may or may not be aware, the financial markets are crashing. We're beyond what they saw in 1929, folks. This is unprecedented. When you start taking 50% of the equity out of the markets, folks, it's going to get ugly. Now, having said that, there are alternatives because what we can do individually as in a group is begin to adjust our lifestyles. And one of those is being able to prepare and grow your own food. It's going to become very important. A little history here before I introduce my two guests. Back in 1938, under the Roosevelt administration, they started because they had the same problem. They didn't have as near a sophisticated distribution system we had. And President Roosevelt encouraged every American, regardless of where you lived, even in a skyscraper, to grow what they called a victory garden. One plant is what he said could feed tomatoes, could supplement your diet. By the time they ended that program in 1946, 47, can you get this? The American individually, we were supplying over 50% of the national produce through the Victory Garden campaign. So we're going to kind of do our own, and I have two wonderful guests here. We have Mr. Brian with Milky Way Messengers. So good to have Brian. You could call him a farmer because he's got a few little, he's got some ground. And I am very pleased to have Debbie Mance, who is part of our community. And Deb, you are, I would have to say, I would say an expert gardener. Go ahead, you can take the bow.
You're always, I was going to say, you're always learning, and
yes,
it's always different every season.
Yeah.
And that because the weather is different every season. And I'm in a difficult place being at the top of Idaho. And
you
have a whole different challenges compared to people a lot further south.
Shorter growing season,
I don't
right?
have the water, right, and that. So
I was going to ask you, have you noticed like a difference in planting times? Used to you could pretty much go by by clockwork, the dates, but it seems like with the weather changes now, I mean, is that even relevant anymore?
No, I go when the soil's workable. This year, the only thing we're doing is taters. But
is there a reason for that, Deb?
Well, I'm redoing my whole garden, and by the time I get finished with it, we've got some house maintenance that needs doing, and trying to fit the garden in because I grow most of our veggies, and then I water bath or pressure can depending on what I'm canning up, and I drive it 1,000 miles down to my daughter and her family because she's in the Sierras, and growing there is clay soil, even amending it. And then they have a real deer problem because everybody feeds the deer, so the deer won't go away, and it's just a mess. So I'm feeding 6 people technically with my little garden.
That's even here. I have to put a fence around my garden because the deer just annihilate it.
They won't come up right
on the stick.
The big one right here. And they don't go after the potatoes. And I stopped growing out in the meadow, which we had to put a fence on, and that. Those fences. So we also have moose. So that means if the moose decide to get in there, you're
there's not a whole lot.
There's no stopping.
Just say surrender.
So, I'm in a challenging place, and that to find out what grows well in your area, the first thing I recommend before you start is go to your local farmer's market, because what you see a lot of usually grows well. Usually. Now I grow some things that aren't at my market. I can grow chickpeas real well, beans for drying, like black beans, cranberry, and what's the other one? Kidney. Those do really well up here. And calabri, which is kind of like this green alien egg thing, and that.
So you're responsible for all this.
I wish I could grow celery.
I knew it.
Yeah, it's part of the brassica family cabbage, and it has a very faint cabbage flavor to it. Not as much as say it, not like broccoli or anything, and high in a lot of nutrition, and it's great. Putting in soups and stews. You can mash it and have it kind of like you would mashed potatoes and stuff. Oh, hey, I grow a lot of radishes. You slice them up and saute them in some butter. Oh my goodness.
I can still remember as a kid, grew up time with my mother in St. Louis, and cabbage was a mainstay of so many of the homes because it was cheap. And I can smell that smell even now talking about it.
And cabbage, it holds for a long time too. You can keep a head of cabbage, if it's cool, it'll last for a long time.
Put it in a root cellar, it can last you 6 months.
Yeah.
No root cellar here.
None. Is that because of the terrain?
No, it's because they just didn't put one in the south.
I can dig that.
And putting one in is
one of the things I'd like to begin as we start this. I mean, there are a number of different ways that people can, if you live in an apartment, and you have, typically they do have a small little balcony out there, you can get a 5-gallon bucket from any of the hardware stores, drill some holes in the bottom of it, put a layer of rock, and then you can put your soil in that, and you can begin to have a garden. So speaking of that, Deb and Brian, just jump in here. One of the things I have found is you have to be careful about your seeds.
Yep.
Heirloom or organic.
Now, I have been a patriot, and this is one that will last 20 years. They're heirloom seeds and Genesis seeds, actually. We save these for when it gets really bad, but we do have another one where you can actually buy it by the can. So how would you recommend, Deb, for a person starting out? First of all, let's talk about what is feasible to grow. Tomatoes grow almost anywhere, right?
I get a good amount of tomatoes. Tomatoes are a lot easier than they seem. If you can't, I set up my old Katy canopy and cover it with the top's gone. I was a merchant at Renaissance Fair years ago. Anyway, cover it in thick 6 mil plastic, and we run some lights out there, and we would make a greenhouse out using my old stand. And that is I call it my redneck greenhouse. But if you
this
have
is your website, by the way.
Yeah. That's my that's right outside my front door, so to speak, even though we don't come in and out of that door normally.
That's a garden, girl.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, working with the soil, though, you wouldn't believe the meditative and health it does for you. It's wonderful. I can't go barefoot because pine cones shatter, and you've stepped on a pine cone bit, haven't you?
Make you dance.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then some. A lot of crying too. So
you'll find out how what's really in your heart. You'll find out whether it be person or being.
I have to clear a spot so I can go barefoot.
Exactly.
But, that's all my different. When I started out in that, that is the little boxes, the 3x3s. I get 2 6-foot by 6-inch cedar fencing, untreated, without the dog ears, where it's flat on top. And you cut them in half, and then I stagger the joints, like one corner would be like this, and then the next one like this, in such a way, if that makes any sense, in wood screws. And but the 3x3 will take 2 fence boards. And
What can you typically get out of a 3x3? What do you plant in this typically?
Oh my goodness. I'm using square foot gardening technically, and they have all sorts of charts free online on how much you can squeeze in there. Now I can squeeze in more tomatoes than they do. I'll run on, I have mine 6 foot long now, and I'll put 6 to 8 tomato plants along there, and they do just fine. And that, but that's how I started, because I had to kill the I don't know what kind of grass was down that first, and that big pile of sawdust and hay. I was trying to do potatoes that way, but where we live, that is considered a bug and mouse feast
Oh, I
place.
could see that. Yeah.
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 The potatoes
Hey, Dad,
did
I
not
found
do
a
well.
new place.
Yeah. You don't know what's going to work for you until you try it. And say the tomatoes grow really well in one box, but you change it up to another box and they won't do well because they don't like it there. And it's a matter of trial and error, and that. But yeah, that's when I first started out.
Oh, those are beautiful beds, by the way.
Yeah, they worked very nicely. It's like you can get 16 carrots in a foot.
Can you?
And yeah, and with the really skinny guys, you can get almost 32.
Now, are you growing beans on here? Is this why you have the
Not
trellis?
the trellises were for peas.
Peas.
And
Okay.
green beans. Yeah.
Okay.
And also I put the tomatoes up against them because then I would tie them to the trellising and that. Now I had tried those things that are down there for the peppers, and I found I didn't need them. It was better just to stick a piece of bamboo there to hold it.
You know,
And
Deb, as I'm looking at this, you are out in the forest, aren't you? You're in the woods.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That is east. Well, it was east and south sun, but the sun has moved. So now
People don't believe
it's a
that,
little,
but it has.
no, it has moved. So, but everything seems to still be doing, just fine.
I didn't realize when you were talking about critters, I mean, they
Yeah.
literally are coming out of the forest.
Yes. But I figure if I can do it here, we have also very sandy soil. It's normally sandy loam, and ours is extremely sandy. So you will have to amend your soil. And for me, I haven't found clay cheap. Oh, that was the next reiteration out in the front there. Anyway,
Girl, I mean, this is just freaking beautiful. What do you think,
yeah.
Brian?
I think it's amazing. And I see you've got does that transfer into somewhat like a greenhouse? Those arches?
No, all those things on top are, we made a hoop bender, and that's, what's that? Conduit electrical,
Oh yeah, condo
whatever.
pipe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we made our own pipe bender where we'd each take one and then bend it around. The picture, I don't know if it's on this particular website. And then we have chicken wire on top because everything was getting blasted by the trees doing pinecone bombs at first. And we don't seem to have as much problem with that.
So it's more for
this
pest
is-
protection then.
Yeah, well, for pinecone bombs. Now we still have it over our strawberries, and then we put netting over it because the birds have decided my strawberries, they like them as much as we do.
Hey.
And we also have raspberry and blackberry bushes down on the slope, and kind of back behind there. There's a slope in that, and we have to cover those.
Are you growing green onions? Is that what I see at the?
Those are garlic.
Garlic. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, and you could see
Far out. Yeah.
up close. There's they were starting to get their Skypes. Is that what they're? No. scrapes, whatever. And that, and you can eat those and that, but you want to take them off.
Mouth is
Otherwise,
watering already.
yeah.
It's Italian.
Yeah. And the cans hanging off there, my husband put those up there. So if I'm smoking while I'm down there digging, and no, it hasn't caused any issues. I
This is
have
just
instant
beautiful.
ashtrays.
Wow,
A
I'm
lot of
just so
people in chat are talking about not having room and things like that. And you were talking about the rat's nest earlier, but that's also, you know, Wayne and I were talking before the show. That's also a good way if you don't have a lot of room though to do the mounds or like people
Yeah.
were saying in chat to grow up. You can get these.
Tires,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you
stack
can use
old
tires
tires,
as well.
and that. No, I didn't have any tires, and so
well,
I
we were
didn't.
talking about hay bales. I mean, now I know that can sometimes get a little messy, but hay bales make an excellent.
I tried that. It works.
Does it work? How
Yeah.
was your success on that, Deb? Look at the size of those
what did-
potatoes.
Yeah, those are Yukons.
Those
Well, I
some big
know, I know.
cojones.
I mean, that's one meal
I
right
can't remember.
there.
What did I grow in the hay bales?
Wow.
And they went real well, but we didn't do it again.
Look at the green beans.
I don't remember what I did in the hay bales, but yeah, Napa cabbage.
There's nothing like growing your own food either because it tastes so much better. And I don't know if
That's
it's because
spinach.
the love you put
Oh.
in it or
Yeah.
what. But
I want a salad. That's all I
I
need.
know,
Let's just
right?
take a break. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, I'm
That was all blanched and frozen.
I
And
can
we
taste
have a
it.
food sealer.
Oh man.
Once you taste your own veggies, you'll wonder what in the world is that, and you can use any word you want to describe it in the grocery stores. It's that bad. Or
I
that
love what
good
you've
when
done
you do
here.
your own.
It is just fabulous. I mean, look at
Um,
this.
I like how you're keeping
Now-
a journal as well.
Well, I plot mine out. I have a ruler out there, and yes, it's humorous.
No, I think it's
I
absolutely.
use a graph for each bed, and I map out what's going to go where ahead of time. That way, if a certain little spot needs more stuff, oh yeah, I'm artist.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
crafter, and
I like
I'm
that.
trying to get people. I'm trying to get people to start making things again. You know, give them away, whatever. You know, and
We all gonna have enough
we're all
time to
good
do
at
it.
this.
I-
It gives you smiles.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. My chemtrail buster, which decided to commit suicide a couple days ago. I've got to make a new one. It's in one of those. I have galleries of all sorts of stuff. It's to inspire.
Now I want to say Elizabeth sent this in, and here is one of those.
Greenhouse.
That's
This
what I
is
want.
yeah, this is exactly what Lynn and I are looking at. I mean,
Yeah.
because where we go ahead, Deb. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's a cattle panel
Okay.
bent over, and then it looks like they used electrical conduit and then 2x4s.
Yeah, and it looks like the chicken wires in here. Or
The
wire.
cattle panel is on the
Okay.
side
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and that it gives some structure.
And look
Yeah, there
how
you go.
this is not that difficult, folks.
I know, right?
That is another way you can grow your pole beans and
Yes.
peas is to bend over the fencing or cattle panel, and they'll grow up them very nicely, and they look really pretty. So
I'm really going to get into this because we live right here in Colorado where we can get freezes and snow in the middle of May, as you well know, up in Idaho.
right,
Yeah.
there is some heirloom and special seed places in Colorado just geared to your area and altitude. That's another thing is altitude.
Yes.
Like I'm only at 2,200 feet. We were living at 4 for a while. So you have different challenges in that.
You certainly do. I can tell you, it's a fact.
Yeah. Don't grow anything just because it looks interesting. At the grocery store, get the vegetable that you're interested, taste it, And even though it won't be as good as the homegrown, because otherwise having a whole bunch of something that you find absolutely wretched to eat is not fun.
No,
Um,
no.
Obsidious in the chat is wanting to know, how do you store your beans? And I guess I would tell them how you store dry and fresh.
Okay, dried beans, once they're completely dry, um, lately I've been getting the half-gallon mason jars, and you put the lid on, and I have a food sealer and sucking the air out of them and put them in that, or just put them in a food sealer bag. For green beans, either I pressure can them. We need to buy a little freezer. Otherwise, you blanch them, make sure they're nicely, lay them out on a tray and shove them in your freezer, kind of spread out. You'll have to do them in batches, and you can freeze them that way. You don't want them all the way cooked when you freeze them. And that now, they used to, decade or 100 years ago, maybe, they dried their green beans. They called them leather britches.
I
And
bet.
I don't know how they
Sounds perfect. I like that.
I think they put them in soups and they reconstituted, but I haven't tried it and that, because I do want to try that sometime. It's like when we had chickens. I tried all the different ways to keep all the eggs and stuff. But
By the way, a little, if you wipe your eggs with I had the name witch hazel, your eggs will last 6 months.
And you don't have to
It
keep them
doesn't-
in the refrigerator.
No, don't
No.
put them in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
ruins them.
yeah.
With
Do you
just
have
the two
chickens,
of
Deb?
us, yeah. We did.
Okay.
We had a realm shift, is the only thing I can figure, because suddenly they got fleas. There is no fleas up here, never has been. And all of a sudden, it's Pacific Northwest
I've never heard
fleas,
of that.
because there is no such thing. Now they're all gone. In fact, my poor dog got them from the chickens, and they almost killed the chickens. So my husband had to dispatch them. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And I can't take a chance of them reappearing again. Supposedly they're on the turkeys. If they were on the turkeys, though, they would still be in the dirt, and they're not. I think we're realm shifting. I really do. That might so crazy. I don't
argument.
care, because even other farmers and livestock people said there's no such thing as fleas up here. You might get ticks once in a while, but not fleas. It's just it's not a happy place for fleas.
And I know it's a little off topic here, but you see, it's by gardeners and farmers who can really tell us what the sun is doing.
Yeah.
People all the time, you hear it, but the sun has changed. I mean, actually what has changed is the earth.
It's hotter. The sun is, when it does beat down on you, it burns. It's
It
not
does
warm
burn.
anymore.
You
That blue
experience
light
that.
spectrum.
Well, it's not yellow
Yeah.
anymore. It's white.
Yeah.
You were talking about container gardening for people with just, they're in an apartment. You can trellis just about any, put a stick in there, and you could do your green beans. You can do cucumbers. Companion gardening. You go online and they have tons of list of what grows together. That's the other thing. I have different vegetables mixed in, and what they do is bugs confuses them. And that the only thing you'll have to watch out for is ants, and you find their trail where they go back home, and you put DE. I'm not going to try to say DM whatever word, earth, and kill your ants, because otherwise they are going to set up illegal aphid sweatshops on your vegetables.
Little bastards.
And yes, because they like the sugar off the aphids.
They do. By the way,
And
another thing that people can do to start your seeds, just get an egg crate.
those work really well.
Yeah.
Broken eggs too.
Yeah.
You can
And
put
you
them
can
on the
actually
bottom.
plant this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to let people know.
If you leave the egg shells down in there and put your a little bit of soil and your seeds in there for like tomatoes and peppers and everything of the nicotoid type things, because of the calcium in the shell and all the other nutrients. It works well with all plants, but those particular varieties really love being started in shells.
I plant
Just remember,
chrysanthemums, yeah, because chrysanthemums, they up here they work as a great insect repellent.
yeah. I also put herbs intermixed with everything. Certain herbs go really well with that, and that's another companion gardening thing. Now that we're going to be going to the cement blocks, all those little holes are going to be filled with dirt and herbs.
So now you're going to go to concrete blocks this year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't have to replace them.
Okay, that's true.
Leaning over the edge of the wooden ones, you get splinters, using it for balance, because you don't want to lean into the bed and smash down the dirt.
Hadn't
And
thought about
the
that.
wooden ones have to, because of our area, those wooden boxes will last about 2 seasons. And, the price of cedar boards is going way up. Well, I won't have to replace the cement anymore. And down the road, if I want to make them taller, where I sit on a stool instead of, on the ground. Before I forget, the best kneeling pad you could ever get, and the season's coming up, is the little kids' foam kickboards. Because they're cheap as heck. Those special pads you buy to sit on or kneel on the garden, they start at like $20 on up. Get a kid's pool kickboard.
I love that idea.
What up a shirt? I mean, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's sometimes you want padding.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I'm 60. You want padding.
Yeah, that's true. And listen, as you get older, I mean, let's just face it, bending over,
Everything hurts.
it's just the way it is. I mean, but
Well, with the cement blocks, though, you get more, and you do have to put in some rebar here and there and cement them down, which is really no biggie.
I'm going to look into that. I mean, and I'm going to look at the cost of that. I hadn't thought about that. Now,
Have you
Brian,
done
what do
any
you do? Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to ask her if she'd done any indoor gardening at all. No, I mean,
I'm not going to talk about that one.
But don't you think that is imperative?
In Idaho, I'm not talking about that one, and we don't do that anymore. But yeah.
No, I mean, indoor gardening. I think that yeah. I mean, I know a person who actually grows herbs all year long up here in Colorado, because she sets it right there, in the southern sun.
Yeah, you can grow herbs in your windowsill year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in the winter here, even though I've got double pane windows. And plus that we put curtains all the way to the ground in all of our back rooms.
Makes sense.
Because our house is real small, but with the wood stove and that, when it's 2 degrees out, it really helps to kind of only heat certain rooms. So,
well, those who live in a southern temperate zone, a little bit further south.
All your windows are perfect.
Yeah, you guys can. When I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, you could do that.
Alternatives to using wood and cement blocks. Now, there are people making their own cement or their own blocks, and they're using, I don't even understand what they're making, but they're making these blocks. But if you go on YouTube, there is, all sorts of things that I forgot.
I know some people that make their own bricks.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Bricks.
Yeah.
And that I've seen people use rocks from their property to make beds. Another one took water bottles and soda bottles and made, the barrier, filled them with water, and so it kind of helps keep the soil.
That would insulate it. Yeah.
And so they use trash.
I think that's a wonderful idea. What a great way to recycle.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can use for a border. And that you just, if you do wood, just make sure it's untreated, because
I'm
yeah.
surprised that you said that those the cedar wood deteriorated that quick. I really thought that cedar had a longer life than that.
Well, where I live, no.
Hmm.
You
Interesting.
might get some more years, and that they don't like to be moved around either after about the second year. But they just start rotting real quickly because we get snow, lots
No, in
and
Alaska,
lots.
that's what they use for foundations is cedar because it
Yeah,
doesn't deteriorate as
yeah.
quick.
But this is only, fence board, and so it's
Ah,
cheap fence board
I got you.
and that. But it works as a good border, and plus that you're not in for a whole bunch of money, not knowing whether you want to keep on doing it. And since I'm going to continue until I can't do it anymore,
it's a
I
smart
really
thing
like
to do.
having, yeah, well, it's tasty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Food should be enjoyable.
Now, Brian, you put
And
a garden in every year, right?
Yep, I do.
How big of a garden do you go for?
Actually, last year it was probably not that big, maybe 14 foot by 14 foot, something like that. But like I said, I have to fence it all because the deer, pretty much wear it out. Now this year, probably going to plant a little bit bigger. I don't know if I'll be able to fence it all in, but pretty much it's just enough to, sustain myself. But, once tomatoes and things like that come in, if you don't start canning them and things like that,
Oh.
you just get overwhelmed with them. And
yeah,
sometimes that makes you the popular person in the community, though.
It
Because
does,
you're
I
giving out
bet.
free
yes, it does.
tomatoes.
People in my neighborhood called me the tomato man because I was going door to door. Hey, you want some tomatoes? Because yeah.
At least it wasn't zucchini, right?
That's what I'm saying. I think this is a blessing to get back to our roots and start thinking. I posted something earlier today. They've suspended air travel and things like that. This is a blessing for the earth too. I mean, we're not
Oh,
constantly
yeah.
getting
Not
bombarded from
polluting
all
it.
these chemicals from above and all these factories putting out all this. Like the earth is cleansing itself.
By the way, I'd recommend as well. Now, I know a lot of people may not like it, but squash.
Mhm.
Squash is a prolific producer. I love, whether it be zucchini or even yellow squash. It just nothing like frying that in butter and just with some garlic and oh man.
I like it
I'll be,
grilled.
You like it grilled? Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I take some and shred it, and you don't have to blanch it or anything else. And I put it in an exact amount that I need for zucchini bread and put that in the
Oh,
freezer. Um, I have a soup recipe. I don't know. I don't think I've reposted it on the new website there, where it's zucchini and green beans and onions and garlic and just I call it my Italianish meatball soup because I make little meatballs to go in there too.
that sounds
I'm gonna have
delicious.
to eat
But
after the
it's
show.
I mean, I'm just sitting here salivating. I gotta have a salad. I
oh,
mean,
I'll tell you what, we celebrate our first salad and the
oh
first
yeah.
tomato, we sit and share it.
I made the mistake one year of growing English cucumbers. I'll
Oh,
never do that again.
you
Them
can
damn
grow
things got
tomatoes from hanging baskets before I forget.
okay.
Yeah.
Remember that.
That's
But
hilarious.
don't listen, if you plant them, get them early because they literally, I mean, have you ever grown English cucumbers, Brian? I mean,
I haven't grown them, but that's like I know with squash and things like that. The bigger you let them get, they also get more tough and fibrous.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Um,
cantaloupe. That's another good one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get that one up
Can
here.
you
It
grow
just
that up
doesn't
there?
grow.
You're too far
No.
north, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did get one watermelon, the little tiny
Yeah.
to actually mature, but no.
That's good.
By the way, your extra zucchini and cucumbers, they're just bigger versions, pickle beautifully.
Yeah.
And that, so when you have a whole bunch of them, you pickle them. And that's a water bath, so that means you don't have to have a pressure canner. And
Linda has, oh, she can pickle them. I mean,
yeah, I'll tell you what, pickles also, because they're fermented. I also have a crock thing for fermenting and then canning if I want to do that. But fermented foods and pickled foods, there's all these extra health benefits on top of it. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah. This, I wish I lived down where you are at, Brian. I lived in Texas for a while, and you could grow cantaloupe down there, and watermelon. I mean,
Yeah.
that I made the mistake of letting the cantaloupe get loose.
Yeah, there's nothing like
I
cantaloupe.
mean,
in
it
the
took over
summer.
all the freaking yard. It's like, we had some great cantaloupe, but I mean, yeah. What else is people asking for? Are people having a problem finding seeds? I read some.
That's kind of my concern coming up is seeds. I was actually talking to my mother earlier, and we planted corn here last year, and we bought it that day and planted. I think it would be a good idea to go ahead and buy it now, just to sit on, because who knows if that resource is going to be available later on.
Yeah, folks, I would get seeds if you can get them. Go out now, because eventually people are going to snap to this. They're going to go, maybe we ought to grow our food. You think?
And I don't
ordered
know that
my
there's going to be
seeds.
an alternative.
Yeah. What was that, Deb?
I ordered my seeds. A lot
Where
of
do
them
you
come from Oregon.
Okay.
There's another place up in Maine. It's high mowing seed. In Oregon, it's territorial, and I really like those. There's some other heirloom and organic seed places. I know there's one in Colorado. I can't think of the name of it.
We belong to a seed co-op.
Oh,
and
that's great.
Yeah, and so it allows us to, and I think it is important that you get the seeds in your local area. You're going to have more success in getting, I think, a good harvest. At least that's what I've been taught.
Yeah, we do have Amish and Mennonite up here, and just about everybody, no matter what they lean towards, grows gardens and that. So now some of these people have actually been successful with corn up here. We have not. I had one good year and that was it. I can't do sunflower seeds either, for the big giant sunflowers. I just can't seem to find the right spot, but that's how it works. I think I mentioned it, that you can hang your tomatoes. There's those upside down hanging things, or just put them in a basket on your balcony, whatever. And just do cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, those are prolific. Those are great.
Good for you too.
In salad, yeah. Or putting in foods and stuff.
I like eating them straight off the vine.
Oh yeah.
When they're warm.
Yeah. Now I don't use a watering system because of my area, and they're expensive. We come out and we sit and hand water we bought, those $10 sprayers where you can change the little nozzle to whatever and use the shower. But we sit and put energy into the thing as we're pushing it, good woo-woo, and it works. And so
I talk to the plants.
I do that too. I talk to the soil, I talk to the plants, tell them how beautiful they are that day. One doesn't look all that great. Oh, are we having a bad time? Well, we'll give you, some vitamins here, that kind of thing. For bugs, you have DE, but when it gets wet, garlic water works really good, and neem water, but you have to make sure the neem does not get on your blossoms.
What is
and that
neem?
Because of the bees.
I haven't heard that before.
Neem oil. I think it's from Australia. You get it organic. And is it okay to mention where I find mine?
Yeah, go ahead. No, it's fine.
Home Depot usually has the organic neem in some of your hardware stores in the garden center. You want to get organic, and you mix like a couple tablespoons to 2 gallons of water. We get those cheap sprayers and that, but you just don't want to get it on the blossoms, and it will take out all sorts of bugs. without being poisoned. And that
Yeah.
because we don't, there is no poisons here. We have the giant, I call them, my grandson used to call them the aliens. You know, the giant lines, the power lines, the big giant towers is on one side. In fact, it's a ley line. They always pick ley lines for those, by the way. And the hill there, we caught them last year starting to spray. And the guy, my husband's running up there, you know, screaming at him to stop. And this guy kept spraying harder. When we left the house later that day, they came back and sprayed. If they weren't from Washington, I think they said they had a right to. And no, you don't. You're not poisoning my land. It runs down into that meadow. Now, I wasn't growing food there that year in the meadow, but, you know, it's, yeah. So you have to watch out for if you've got power lines anywhere that they don't spray around there, and be sure. We had it filed not to spray, and the guy moved somewhere else, and so the new guy said, "Screw you all."
And I love them. You know, you just gotta love people.
Chief State 22 is wanting to know, is it the same neem that is in toothpaste?
NEEM.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's the way he
in
spelled it.
the I'm not going to say the word, the Indian toothpaste. Yes, their homeopathic style. Yes,
Okay.
it is in there. It's neem oil. You can get it in little bottles. Also for you cut it with the carrier or thing. It's really good for your skin because I don't wear gloves because I like touching.
Yeah.
Mom, I like my hands in the dirt. I have learned not to screech when I come across a giant June bug grub or Mormon cricket grub. You just drop them in a little cup of water and they're gone. Same with cutworms and, you know, those kind of things. You just drop them in water. And I dig down my dirt.
I have earthworms that get about that big.
It's good,
And
though.
oh yeah, I mean, all I have to do is start tapping on the ground, put a little water on there, and you just get I get the end of a 2x4 and just start tapping it, and they literally come up to the surface, and I transplant them over into the garden.
That's actually something you can do in these small bed gardens and things like that, is go buy night crawlers or something like that and put them in your soil, and it regenerates the soil.
Yeah. They love the poop. Plant love earthworm poop. I mean, it's like good stuff.
I use earthworm poo, bat guano, and chicken poo.
Yep.
In as my amendments, and that's
chicken's
the thing
good for the
you're always going to have to amend. Yeah.
The chicken's good for the vegetative, and the bat's good for the flowering cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
VM says that her aunt lives in Conifer, which is just a little west of me. And yeah, the altitude is a real challenge. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't believe it, but the first year, I mean, the sun up here is pretty intense. I live at right about 6,000 feet. And the big problem I've had is radiation burns, you know, from the sun.
Got those last year.
Yeah.
If you want to do a shade,
that's what we're doing.
Go to a fabric store and get the cheapest tulle or tulle for wedding bales that you can possibly find. It's a lot cheaper than buying any kind of screen, is buying that, and just clip it all around your plants. You know, you can even put sticks in the ground, bamboo ones, whatever, to make yourself kind of like a canopy over stuff when you're getting too much sun.
Yeah, up here it's a real problem. It's
yeah.
I was going to say, Wayne, they said that the sun, the radiation output has increased by 20% just this year.
Oh, I have no doubt. I mean, it's last year was devastating for us. And that's why I knew I don't go out now unless I'm completely sleeved, because, you know, it's just nuts.
By the way, you want white because it bounces some of the heat back. If you use black, it gets really hot under there.
We use a white muslin type material, and we don't leave it on all the time. We just do it primarily from about 1 o'clock till about 5. Because that's
I get the Thule just because I can water through it.
yeah, you can. Yeah.
I've actually seen it where after it rains and the sun hits those beads of water on the leaves, it just literally burn holes through the plant.
Nuts.
Yeah, I've
You
seen
know,
that.
And the other thing we have up here is hail. I mean, we
Yeah.
planted 3 times one year. It was just nuts. It's just wiped out. So Brian,
With
what do
this-
you see down in your area? Have you seen changes in your growing season?
Oh, most definitely. That's why I was asking her earlier. It doesn't seem like the growing seasons are even remotely close to what it is. And pretty much now the way I do it is just kind of by going off gut instinct, really.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where's it blowing? I think it's time to plant.
Because I mean, my grandmother, she was one of those that always went by the farmer's almanac, and like I said, used to you could pretty much go by that, but it's changed
No,
now.
it's kind of a useless thing except for being interesting to read. I find soon as I can work the soil, it's not frozen anymore. You can go for, well, I plant my garlic after I put the garden to bed, so to speak, clean everything up.
Okay, yeah.
I get the garlic in there, so that starts up in the spring. I need to start doing that with the onions because we don't have long enough for most onions, except for those little cipollini type.
Yeah.
But as soon as you can work the soil and it's not going to freeze, hard freeze overnight, you can get started. And there's a lot of veggies that you can start at the lower
Soil
temperatures.
is really important.
Yeah.
I guess, well, Brian, where you live, you don't have a problem with soil, but or do you?
There's some areas it's a lot of clay around here. I mean, luckily where I'm at, I have pretty much a mountain behind me, so I get a lot of that erosion. I've got pretty fertile land here, but there is a lot of red clay in this area.
Well, I would take about 6 yards of that dirt, just send it on over. Just drop it in the driveway and I'll take it from there, Because y'all have some good soil. Go ahead, Deb.
Oh, I was going to say, if you have a wood stove and you're burning untreated wood, of course, you can add ash if you need to bring the alkaline down. That adds some acid. Now I'm in pine trees, so I have to go the opposite way. What is it, potash?
Mm-hmm.
Brian,
Potash.
help me. Yeah.
Potash. Potash. Yeah.
And that to bring mine up a little bit in certain things. Roses. We've got wild roses. You wouldn't believe in rose hips. That's another thing. If you can have some place to put some wild roses that do rose hips, that's a good thing, because rose hips, you make it into a jelly.
And it's good in vitamin C, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's got some other nutrition in it. So
yeah.
Great during cold season. I also have elderberries where they're finally getting enough where
that's the big craze right now.
Elderberries.
Yeah.
I was the same. We're thinking the same thing. I'm going, that would be some good wine.
No,
I'm talking the jelly, of course. I'm just whining because I don't have any.
Yeah. Also, I'm lucky. There's a lady who does honey, and we get it in the big giant gallon jars, and you keep that on hand.
And honey lasts forever, basically.
Folks, I mean, listen, if you want to make an investment, which we did a number of years ago, we bought 4 of those 5-gallon buckets full of honey. And, they found it in King Tut's tomb. I mean,
still good.
Still good,
Yeah.
And everybody should get some honey. Don't get the refined crap. If you can get to...
It's not real.
Yeah, don't buy the corn syrup.
It's corn syrup. Yeah, it's corn syrup.
Go to the farmer's market, go to an organic nursery. They typically will sell the farmers that are the beehives, the bee farmers, in which...
And support your local bee farmers.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
I mean...
also, if you do crafts like I do, and you need to use wax on your threads and stuff like that, because I also embroider, they usually sell wax. You also can melt it down and make some really nice candles
Hmm.
and that.
It's a good
Add a
balm
little,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So um, there's a lot of things that I make my own tooth powder and I make our own deodorant. And I finally found a deodorant one with very little baking soda because you need it in there for it to work. And number one, you stop sweating
Is that
after a
right?
while. Yeah.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
you might perspire some, and it takes a long time because you'll have odor for a while. But I found I'm one of those people who are real sensitive to baking soda, and I haven't posted the redo where it has just enough in there for stinkies. I smell like shaved pencils. I don't know why, but
I have been
anyway,
on the Washington D.C. subway at 5 o'clock, and you find out those who actually use deodorant and those who don't.
yeah, you know,
I guess that is
it's
gonna be a thing of the past now, I guess.
well, just my husband and my dog here. I usually don't put war paint on, as I call it. And I put some color on so I don't look like I'm about ready to get sick or something. Because I'm
Someone
real
wants you to
pale.
do a show on how to make your own deodorant.
I'm going to
Yeah.
put it on
Also,
my
Darth
website.
Samuel was asking, how do you know if your honey is real? And the only thing I can say that most of the stuff you buy in the store is not. So it's all about source.
There is on YouTube where they were showing, like the phony cheese product and real cheese. When you set it on fire, the cheese melts and the phony stuff burns. There
On
was something on honey. Put it a dab in a bowl, and then put some water on it and swish it around. When you stop, the honey will leave not a flower life, the other thing, the toroid pattern. The other stuff just gets ripples in it because it's corn syrup in that. And someone did a YouTube showing that, what was real and what wasn't, and that. But
Look
the
into that.
honey,
Unprocessed will help you a lot.
yeah,
If you get unprocessed
yeah.
crystals, if you get the crystals in your honey, that's how
Yeah,
the bees make it. That's the real stuff.
yeah,
I always like to
Yep.
get the one that actually has some of the honeycomb still in it.
Yeah.
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 That's the goods.
I mean, you can make gum out of that. That's just good
Oh,
stuff to
I
chew
chew
on.
on it.
You
Yeah.
see?
I sit
Oh,
there and
yeah.
chew on it.
I used to
That's
do
what
that
I'm
when I was
talking,
young.
you
Yeah.
know? And it's true. I mean, I remember as a kid, we used to get that sour grass, and I just loved chewing on that, Come to
Yeah.
find out, we were getting nutrients we didn't even know.
Yep.
Well,
Oh,
this has been a fun time. Someone says, can you make soap out of that?
out of the honey.
No, I mean, do you have a recipe for homemade soap?
Yes. I use good old lard. And then from a place called Essential Depot in Florida, I get food grade lye. I do not use that stuff people use because you don't know exactly what is all in there, but it's food grade lye because they use lye when they make pretzels and hominy corn. Anyway, I get food grade lye and then olive oil and coconut oil, and it makes the best soap. It's not drying, and lard is it's a byproduct, and it's left there, so why not make use of it? Well, I cook with it too because
I
I
did
make
not know that.
killer Mexican food. You could also use tallow, tallow left over from beef. You can render your own, but I would recommend you get a pot and one of those propane burners and do it outside because rendering your own fat stinks. You can make your own lye running water through wood ash, and it makes a really soft lye for making like soft soaps, liquid soaps. And that I have not tried that. It's just
Get
kind of
some
like
of
I
these.
can buy it.
I got to get this posted up on, the Crystal Network. I mean, these are good ideas.
Yeah, I got some
Yeah,
soap from Crystal MacArthur that she made, and I've been using it for a while, and it's amazing. And she makes a lot
Crystal,
of
if you
homemade
got
soaps.
that, let me know. We'll we'll get some of these products out there so we can buy
Yeah.
them. I'd rather buy it from this group than, you know, buying it
Absolutely.
from a stranger. Yeah. That way, you
I,
know, I know where you live.
I keep my whole family supplied in soap. And by the way, it works very well on your hair.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have to still use a conditioner because this time of year, because it's dry. And if I don't have my humidifier going, after a while, my hair starts going like this. And it,
Hey, the
like,
70s were
it's
beautiful,
getting
baby.
lumper. About 10 years ago,
Talking about my fro, man.
my hair was 4 foot long about 10 years ago. And I'll tell you that's a mess. Yeah, I was a teenager in the 70s. I was born and baked in Fresno, California. You
Yeah,
should be familiar with that one. That was
I know
a
it well.
biker
Yeah.
/ agricultural town.
Yeah.
I had a
Brings
good
back the
time.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it. You know, we're going to be fine, folks. I mean, I'm getting text all day that apparently the markets are just going absolutely
Yeah, they
nuts.
shut the market down
Oh,
actually
Yeah.
today.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just going. Listen, I want to
Okay.
bring up before we leave, folks, that let's start doing a mass meditation. If you have an hour, then start doing it. I can actually just start telling people that if you're doing it 11 o'clock, I do mine at 10 o'clock Mountain Time in the morning. But, you know, much like Karen's doing over in the Crystal Network of doing the tripods of dreamers, I think now we need to really come in, folks. We're going to need some mass meditation.
Absolutely.
We are.
Oh, before I forget, this is left field. I'm going to be making some organite for a friend who has a woo-woo shop down in California. But I also do the black stuff, you know, that for chemtrails or whatever. But I get the little ice cube trays, the little ones. They look like big licorice drops. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But when I get a bunch of those made, if people want to, you know, just pay for me to stuff some in some envelopes, you put the organite on top of any of your devices, and that I also make sticks, you know, ice cube tray stick ones, and I lean our phone on it. I've got them on our WeFry thing. On all my devices have that. I put one in the car near the gas tank. I have one with my what's that called? Electrical panel, you know, inside the door. But you put organite all around that, and I call it combing. It combs the energy so it doesn't fry you as it goes through you. And
A lot of
stuff the
people believe in
electrical.
that. I have it in my office. It's all
Yeah.
around me.
So if I get a bunch of those, and I make little heart ones too, put it in your purse, you know, in your pocket. But I'll probably have a bunch of woo out. And when I do, I'll let you know. And like I said, you know, just a request and, you know, a couple stamps, and I can, you know, share some of that with people, because it is smelly messy. And I know a lot of
You know,
people
like
don't want to make it.
Cool.
There's also, plaster of Paris is gypsum, which is ground selenite. You can make plaster of Paris with putting sea salt and some seashells and crystals in it. And you make all sorts of shapes. The kids can do it. It doesn't stink. And you can use just about anything for a mold and put that all over your yard or around your house. And it's another form of organite. And it works
Love it.
beautifully. And anyone can make that. I mean, you can get that at any store, you know, plaster Paris. But
on
it's
that note,
actually ground selenite.
I want to say real quick, during this time, these big corporate stores and things like that are going to make it just fine. Please try to support all your local businesses as much as possible
Yes.
through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really going to have to come together, folks. The reality of this is going to hit hard for a lot of people tomorrow. I just got word that they're shutting down all the Ford, GM, and Dodge car plants.
Supposedly New York's going to lock down at 5 o'clock.
you know, so
The state of
folks,
New York.
it's going to get prepared. It's the only thing I can tell you. I'm not going to push everyone into a fear frenzy, but I want you to be mature. I want you to be aware. We're about to get into some uncharted territory that none of us have been in before. And we're going to have to be extra empathic for our fellows here. I mean, you know, sometimes a word can make a mismeaning, but we're going to make this an oasis, and we're going to work it out. Deb,
Find some
go ahead.
humor.
Yes,
Find some
yes.
humor. And this sounds silly. I've taken it up. Coloring.
Yes.
Get some color books. You can do
Oh.
it with kids. Number one, it makes you smile because it's, especially at my age, it's really silly. But you wouldn't believe what it does for the mood. And you can do it with your children, your grandchildren, but it really calms you down when you're stressed about stuff.
I do my Mandelas. I got the books that you can do them. But
yeah.
Brian, talk to us as we go out, buddy. And Deb, I want to thank you. I want to have you back on. Folks,
I'll answer any questions. They can
I'll put her
email me.
her website, and there's a contact form there. You can get to her on that. And that's probably the best way, right?
I'll help as best as I can.
Okay. Brian, take us out, my friend.
The only thing I can say really is, folks, the easy street we've been living thus far may be at its end. So it's time to get up off your butts and put a little work in. And like Wayne said, keep a level head about you. The way I'm looking at this is a blessing in disguise. It's a time to get back to our roots. You're seeing people all over the world, like in Italy, singing to each other. You're seeing these musicians come out and do these free concerts. People are starting to paint, write poetry, do things like that. Be a positive influence. We've got
I
enough.
think this could be a portal to enlightenment. I really do.
Yeah. So.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Be safe. Keep your heads about yourself and be happy. Be happy in the midst of sometimes the greatest sadness. You'll be a light to others. And all of these channels, I know Brian, I speak for Brian. I know there are others, we're going to do our best to get through this. And, that's the best I can say. Go ahead, Brian.
One thing. Please try to exchange phone numbers and addresses just in case the internet might go down, because they're talking about overexposure, with people being home, working from home, which makes no sense to me if you're at work or whether you're at home, you're on a computer. But like I said, they put that out there. So just maybe exchange some numbers and addresses just so you can stay in touch with folks.
I love this. All right, folks, be good. Guests, stay with me. We thank you all, and we'll see you tomorrow here. Brian, when are you going to be back on?
I'll be back Friday night with Brian Lunsford, Big Al, and got somebody else with me. I can't remember. Oh, and David Noel.
That is going to be a show. You turn it off, go over there and go to his show. I'm telling you, Brian has his material.
I'm rebuilding.
You're doing, buddy. Guy, listen, I love you. All right. Love y'all. Be good. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, folks, you two hang on.